Yes, it's playoff week. Just a normal, everyday PH Next
Focus on the
Rising
football, right?
podcast focusing on the football. But wait, there's more. Yes. That intro hits just a bit differently this week, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the PHNX Rising podcast. Appreciate everyone joining us here on the Tuesday. It is officially the offs. It is playoffs 2024 week with USL Championship, and I am Max Simpson. I'm joined by the one, the only Owain, the Oracle Evans. How we doing, buddy?
Yeah, just nothing like a week where you can just focus on, the football, on the games coming up this weekend. And wait, no, we can't just focus on the game this weekend.
We can never have a normal week on this podcast. But hey, it's the news. News helps to generate even more attention, as if you don't need more of that with a playoff week on tap. Make sure to leave a like on your way in here. By the way, we got Nell in the chat. Fat Kid in the chat. Can't say that middle word. Go. Absolutely. But, listen, we got a lot to get into, right? Again, it's playoff week. That is the big ticket item. There's a lot to discuss. And as you guys know, we're already going to get out of the way. Thursday, as you know, is going to be the deeper dive preview for Rising's first matchup against New Mexico United. Today, right, gonna take a bit, a zoomed out look, season as a whole, kind of where Rising sit within the bigger picture, because we actually weren't really expecting this as of, a couple days, but there is some news in the air, as, just you never know what to expect with, the club and how these things go. Charlotte FC assistant coach Pa-Modou Kah has, there's some rumors from, reported by the Athletics' Tom Bogert.
No longer with the Athletic.
No, thank you. Well, there we go. We're off to a good start. No longer with the Athletic. He has been reported as Phoenix Rising's next head coach, Mr. Owain. What do we make of this?
Yeah. So again, just the context on that. He actually works for Give Me Sport and does also do some stuff with CBS Sports.
Oh, there we go.
As well. But,
good for you, Tom.
Yeah, but he is obviously a very well-connected person at an MLS level. For anyone who follows stuff along, at the MLS level and knows, news breaks is probably breaking via Tom in that case. As you look at this, we'll get into a little bit on the guy's background, on what you should expect in terms of, just that kind of headline level. Who is he? What experience does he bring? All that kind of stuff. But at the same time, for this to come, I mean, we've hinted at it. We've made our little jokes already about how, it would be lovely to just have a quiet week, especially when you've got one going into a playoff weekend and it's an important time for the club. But just putting it in the context of that and this kind of almost unsettling news, I think, at a time when you want your club to be hyper-focused.
Wild.
We're gonna touch on that as well and our thoughts on that one. There will be more on that down the line, down the week. We will have our press conference with Diego Gómez tomorrow and be talking about, some of the topics going into this New Mexico game and other things around the club. So we'll discuss those more on Thursday for our Thursday show. But just to have a look, I think, at just where things are at the minute, really. It's a bigger picture for this club right now.
It is. And I mean, again, going off of what Owain mentioned, I mean, right, if and when the news becomes official, right, we are going to do an even deeper dive on just, style of play, coaching style, results, full-on background coaching history. We do have a couple things kind of the broad strokes that, of course, we'll touch on a bit in tonight's podcast. But really, it is kind of taking that look of what a time for news to break. I mean, right, regardless of whether or not what people think about, the candidate themselves, whether people are excited, whether they like them, not, whatever. It's just fascinating, the timing of everything, right? I mean, this club has had so much upheaval in a way of just how many different managers that they've gone through. I mean, you got to think, right? Appointed, let's say, assumedly, by the end of 2024, 4 different managers in the span of less than 12 months, all within 2024, one calendar year. Listen, the club can say what they want about the choices being made, and some people will defend them, some people will be against them. It's just a lot, though, and there's nothing really else you can say about it. I think, I mean, right, oh, this is kind of what we're trying to address of the bigger state of the club. It's quite the timing for everything is easy enough to say.
just a bit. I will say, though, before we really get into some of I think the context of this week, we do also have to give the context of who this guy is exactly. So let's have a look at the coaching career, at least, or the non-playing career of Pa-Modou Kah. And he's obviously, at the moment at Charlotte, he's an assistant coach there in MLS. They're still going in their playoffs. They've got a game on Friday. Their season could end on Friday. People I know some people were wondering, wow, could he be in New Mexico on Sunday? And not as a coach, as far as I can tell. You look before that, obviously, he was a head coach at Pacific FC up in Canada. Did pretty well up there. Seemed quite well liked up there. Did spend a season at North Texas. That's the reserve team for FC Dallas. And prior to that, it's just a series of kind of roles there with Cincinnati, where he had some kind of backroom roles there for a year before becoming an assistant coach. Started his coaching career actually as a player coach with Whitecaps 2, and the reserve team up there before moving, once he hung up the boots, to a more kind of generalized role within the staff there overall. So this is someone coming in who has a decent amount of backroom staff experience, also has experience of being the guy. He's not coming in, just with assistant coaching experience. He has been a head coach and had that burden on him in the past. So when you add all those things together, right, that's positive. When you look then at his playing career as well, and the fact that, look, this is a guy who has been to a lot of places all over the world as well. When you look at some of the clubs that he has played for over the course of his playing career, starting up in Scandinavia, he ends up in the Netherlands at one point. He ends up going into the Middle East. He comes over to the US to finish his career off. Well, Canada as well in there. He finishes it just north of the border in Canada. But he's someone who brings all of that and international caps for Norway. And again, it's understandable why this is impressive. He comes in with the kind of professional background that I think if you were to draw up what you'd almost expect for a candidate at this level in your ideal scenario, it's the kind of thing that you'd want to see, knowing that you're not going out and getting a superstar because this is USL Championship, right? You're looking for guys who have got enough in their background, have something to prove, want to realistically use you as a stepping stone to the next level. Same as players.
Oh yeah,
to be honest. It's one of those things where I understand entirely why this is an attractive candidate to the club. But again, just the timing for this to come out, the timing has not been great.
No. I mean, right, you look at kind of some of the names on those lists of where he's managed. You touch on the playing career a bit. I mean, right, here's the thing, and I think you kind of mentioned it, right, is, one can view USL Championship as a stepping stone. I think the other thing is, right, it's a mix of being realistic of the candidates that you can attract, but also knowing that the fancy big picture club names we've seen at multiple levels, whether managers are coming in either at the from a illustrious playing career, illustrious coaching year, it doesn't always necessarily translate to just which clubs have you been at, right? It depends on, the individual. It depends on how they've grown talent. It depends on the relationships that they foster. So I want to make sure that that's very much honed in. I mean, right, you see that he has a very, deep background in, the American soccer system, has played here, all that stuff. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. But I will say, if you look at it if you do look at it just from the names, where he's been an assistant coach, one could make the argument that this is perhaps maybe one of the more, I don't want to say high profile, that's maybe not the right word, but maybe this is one of the more high profile, I guess, stops that a manager candidate has had and that Phoenix Rising has brought in since, well, I mean, technically maybe not even Rising and Frank Yallop. You could make that argument.
No, Patrice Carteron.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, not in the US system, but
right.
But outside of the US, he had been, I think, and as we saw by where he moved on to in Al Ahly, at bigger clubs. What I'll say on that one as well, though, when you think about Rising, you often think about kind of this is a team that can poach some of the best and brightest from around USL. That's what you look at this team as. You look at them as one that, well, you know what? Maybe they'll go out and find someone who's a prominent coach and a good coach from another USL club. And you're picking one of those guys up who you look at and say, you know, yeah, potentially a coach of the year type at a smaller club. Why don't you come here? We got the resources to pump in. Let's see what we can do. That's not what they've done here with Pa-Modou Kah. They've gone for a guy who has interviewed for MLS jobs. For whatever reason, he hasn't gotten over the line and gotten those MLS jobs. However, is this a part of that? Is it the go off now, get a job at USL level as the head coach, have maybe a good season, and maybe you're off again? So that's also part of it, right? Look, every coach will come in and tell you they want to build a project. Every coach will also move on if a better opportunity comes up. That's the reality in this league. It's the reality in multiple sports in general. If you can move on to a better opportunity down the line, you will. Obviously, he's already got a foot in the door with MLS to an extent, having been an assistant coach there for so long. Having, again, been in a position where he's interviewed for roles at the MLS level. And that just makes me think as well, this is someone who's going to come in and could well make the club much better in his time, even if he treats it as a stepping stone. So sometimes you have to accept that as the case, because he can raise the level during the time that he's here. But definitely feels a more ambitious move, perhaps.
It does.
Than I was anticipating based on the kind of names that you hear thrown around. And again, the kind of names you hear thrown around, you know who they are, right? They're the kind of same old, like they're good names in USL, but they're not necessarily the ambitious one. This is an ambitious one.
And I think that's exactly it. I mean, again, like I do hold, what I just said a few minutes ago of, right, where these managers have played for, where they've managed, it doesn't always necessarily translate it directly to success. And I think people sometimes overhype a bad candidate or someone who, maybe can't relate well to the players, or they can't get their coaching points across. And they just say, oh, but look at where they've played, where they come from. And they say that that antiquates success. Now, what I will say, though, is I think given where Phoenix Rising has looked in the past, given how this season has gone, I think you needed to go after someone with a higher caliber, someone who maybe wasn't as attached to the USL Championship system, someone who wasn't coming from, lower level leagues, no disrespect there. But I think you just needed someone who you need to kind of overshoot a bit. And again, even if, going back to it, the clubs that he has managed at, where he's assistant managed at, even if that does not necessarily mean success, the fact that they are going after someone who has been within those hierarchies, that have been within those systems, whether or not it translates to success or not, at least they are going after someone who are in those higher echelons of the levels of American soccer. And whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, it is a different approach that they have taken in the past. Maybe they've been looking in the past, but they haven't landed on someone like this before, or at least not in a while.
Yeah, what I'll say on the where people have been and all of that kind of thing, sometimes having a lengthy professional career, no matter what the level is important. It is an important factor. Okay. I don't think it inherently comes as a shock when I say this, but you go around the league in general, and when managers fail, and I visit a lot of these clubs, by the nature of going around and covering Rising on the road. So I hear from people in these different cities, and often what can be the case is that guys who don't have an extensive playing background, you end up with a case whereby, especially because USL being what it is, whereby realistically it's an entry level often for professional coaches who are getting their gig at the top of the pecking order as the head coach. You end up in a case sometimes where some of these players, it comes out where it's like they struggle to relate with certain coaches sometimes, especially when things go badly, when things start to turn. That can often be quite a hindrance with coaches.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to have played at a high level to be a good coach. But I've definitely heard multiple instances within this league, whereby when things start to turn and the coach has never played and probably their coaching career is still a little bit more obscure, a little bit more out there, it hasn't helped. It hasn't helped to bridge kind of the divide with their own playing staff. And I think that is an important factor. The key thing here, more than anything, again, we should move on to this now, I think, is just the timing.
And we were going to get to that timing right on the other side of the break. Yes. Oh, yes, yes. And of course, we have to talk about our friends at Branded Bills because, listen, we love timing. We love a good sale. We love a good discount for the people. BrandedBills.com. Go over, use promo code PHNX. Want to save you guys some moolah, some cash, some ka-ching, 20% off, more specifically. 20% off your first order. All the different variety of hats. You see right next to Owain on the shelf, got a little ASU Branded Bills hat. You look next to me right there. And
you're the Tucson guy, Max, so that makes sense.
I mean, it happened to work out that way.
Mr.
But,
Tucson over here.
BrandedBills.com. Again, you got the ASU hats, the U of A hats. You got Phoenix Suns hats. You got Arizona State flag hats. Do it today. First off, it supports us, right? We do appreciate it. Our partners, really means a lot to us, to them. But also, get yourself some swag, man. They have great hats, the top of the line hats on the market. And while I'm very biased in saying that, they feel like a darn dream. Check it out today. BrandedBills.com, promo code PHNX, 20% off your first order. And, of course, thank you to our friends at Circle K. We're unfortunately not in the Studio K presented by Circle K, but, we love Circle K nonetheless. We're going to, of course, go into their Inner Circle membership, saving 25 cents off per gallon on your first
Max,
five fill-ups.
You know what? We've got an Albuquerque trip coming up this weekend. The one thing about Albuquerque, those bars aren't open late. So I might have to go over to that Circle K opposite the hotel and pick up a box ready for after that game.
You know what? I'm going to even do a nice thing here. It's playoff week. You show me proof that you buy 2 Polar Pops, right? Make sure you post a photo, 2 Polar Pops, tag Circle K, tag myself. I'll buy you 2 Polar Pops on the house. Buy 2, get 2 free. The Max Simpson deal. Max is buying Polar Pops. There you go.
Max is buying Polar Pops.
Clip
okay.
it. Also, and of course, the best part of it, producer Kyle got to redeem himself. Hit me with that Circle K snack.
Yeah, Max.
Okay, that was right off the bottom low. That's okay. Check out our friends at Circle K.
Download the app today.
Can I get one more? And I know. Listen, this is just for me. This is for the content. Make sure you don't step on that for your own. So we got the little gummy bears as well.
Okay.
It's the, honestly, I think this is the combination of the greatness of the Circle K snack coupled with producer Kyle and his lovely Branded Bills hat. His weight propensity was off. Here we go. We got it again. Yep. Ow! All right, that's unfortunate. Oh man, that one is kind of a little short. I'm gonna be real.
Making a mess, right. Max. Making a mess.
Yes. All the way. By the way, before we go on, we got to shout out everyone in the chat again. 179 West, Devanol, Siley. No pity needed for me. Also, definitely not free gas. We're fine with just the buy 2 get 2 Polar Pops. The Max Simpson deal again. Buy 2 Polar Pops. I'll give you 2 Polar Pops on the house. Got to tweet at both of us. Scroll up a little bit, Kyle, as well, if you wouldn't mind. Just a couple brief shout-outs. Fat Kid, Devanol, Banditos, Bluebird, everyone in the chat. You guys are crushing it. Thank you for joining us here on a Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And what is this? James Wilson, one match I went to the last year. They had
that's true.
Little
I got
Circle K truck giving 5 gallons of free gas. Make it happen, Max. James Wilson, that's a very, very good point.
But Max does not have that power.
Yeah, we're not there yet. Yeah, yeah. You know what? If the Circle K truck pulls up to PHNX Studios, listen, I'll be the first to tell you guys. But yes, leave a like
If you're in the Discord, because you're a diehard.
Leave a like on your way in here. And okay, yeah. But let's ban Benito's blooper while we're at it. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. All right, yeah. Let's talk about timing, right? I mean, listen. Again, the announcement. It's definitely again. Positive, negative, and different, no matter what you feel about the potential / soon to be incoming hire. It's just a heck of a way and a heck of a timing to do it. I mean, Owen, listen, we were kind of floored a little bit out of left field to say the least. And I mean, it's one of those things where, I know you had a nice tweet thread about it. I think the summation is it puts you in a very weird spot where there hasn't been that at least public dialogue to rising interim head coach Diego Gómez on his status moving forward. And also you just kind of present this opportunity where you're going into a playoff week, essentially this kind of lame duck, to use the phrase, coaching candidate. And you're just like, what are we doing here? It's a very weird spot to be in.
Look, the problem more than anything is that, look, if you sat down and really thought about it and you thought, is Diego Gómez likely to remain the head coach of this team after the conclusion of this season? The answer at the time he was made interim was no.
Sure.
The answer now is no. The answer 2 weeks ago was no. But when you're in a position where you're about to go into a must-win game, that's the nature of these playoffs now, you must win these games, every single one, or you've got to find a way to not lose and hope that you get through on the lottery that is a penalty shootout. You don't want those outside distractions. And as much as people will tell you that, well, we're focused on the game, well, we're focused on that, when news is brought to the forefront in the way that it has been this week, these are people. Remember that more than any of these players. They're not just going to shut it off. These are people who are finding out plausibly this week, presuming it hasn't already been told to the players and the coaches, which I doubt they would, because again, this is a terrible thing to tell people at a time like this, who are finding out that they've got a new boss coming, who are therefore going to wonder about their own jobs going forward, are going to have, I mean, from the coaching staff's perspective, especially as well, because you never know what a new head coach is going to come in wanting to do. Are they going to have their own people they want to bring? Is Diego, I saw one of the comments earlier further up, was saying, is Diego slotting back into an assistant coach role or not? We don't know. You're in a position where all of that stuff is flooding around you at a point where you should be focusing. Now, I'd say this now, I feel for Diego. That doesn't mean that I feel as though he was the right candidate for this ultimately.
Sure.
But I do feel for Diego in the fact that he's going into a game now where realistically, this is what will define, I think, to the fans, to the history books, his time as interim head coach. This is a big game in terms of playing a team that is very much disliked by the Rising fan base.
That's a way to put it.
In a playoff match. And this is, in a lot of ways, potentially Diego's last match as interim head coach. This is potentially his legacy as interim head coach for these short months that he's been around.
Yeah.
As the man in charge. And now the news drops that, oh, by the way, the club's leadership doesn't have the faith in you long run, but you've got to go out and do it anyway. That's not a nice situation to be in.
No, I mean, listen, I'll kind of go back to the start of what you said. I mean, listen, it's knowing where he took over this club in the middle of this season and kind of the expectations from winning it all last year. Yes, in the fashion that they did, but still nonetheless, they are the reigning, defending champions of USL Championship. I mean, realistically, outside of anything, either another, title appearance or I would say maybe a top 4 finish. And again, those are like arbitrary metrics, but that's, if you have to think, right, 2 things that this club has not achieved before, either a defending championship or a top 4 finish. They have done a top 4 finish, but not at least in a while. I don't know if there was really anything outside of that he could have done to really elevate himself and get in the conversation. Again, that is pure speculation. I do not know how the conversations are, but you'd have to think, given, the kind of weird midseason shift, given how there's been a lack of regular season success, really dating back since 2021. It's been a while since his club has had a serial winner at a managerial level where it's been maintained for a while. So you're probably looking for a fresh start anywhere. It's a tough spot to be in. You got to be sympathetic for him for sure. But the other thing too is I do agree that these guys are human, right? It's like, if you can go back and play revisionist history and go in retrospect, I mean, yeah, if I'm a player, if I'm a manager, if I'm anywhere within this organization, would rather not be hearing this information this week without a doubt. But I think it's also, this doesn't and should not lose the motivation and still change what is ultimately at stake, right? You are fighting for a championship, but even in all aspects, the incentive is still to, really win the match and everything like that. And of course, right, you're still going to approach it as best you can the same way. You are human and those emotions come in. But think about it from all these players' perspectives, right? Players' perspectives, right? Let's say you were maybe banking on, or there was the thought, okay, is Diego Gómez, is he able to come back? Maybe he has the familiarity with some of the players, and okay, maybe they're coming back into the fold. Now, if there's a new manager coming in, whether or not that means you're retained from this team or not, you still want to put your best foot forward out there, because then you're able to say, hey, this is what I have on tape. I performed in the playoffs, whether it's for Phoenix Rising or a new team. I have this to show for it. Same thing for Diego Gómez, same thing for his staff. And I will say, it's easy to say that in theory. I understand the human emotion comes into it, but I don't think it takes away from the fact that there's still a lot to play for.
Yeah, right. And I'm glad you added that bit at the end, because that's the bit that I was about to hammer.
I know you were. I know you were.
And for very good reason, right? It's one thing to say on the one hand, well, the motivation should still be there, and I'm not going to argue that. But the point is that when you get to the playoffs and you are the 8 seed and you are going away to the 1 seed, as unimpressive as I think NMU have been for a 1 seed, in the context of them being a number 1 seed, they're not the juggernaut that Louisville are in the East by any stretch of the imagination. It's so much more than motivation at this point. It's focus. And when you have those questions brought to the fore, even if you kind of knew, and everyone kind of knew, that these questions would obviously be coming up at some point, to have that brought to the forefront right now isn't, helpful. It's no different than saying, let's say, for example, Max, I'll be honest, let's say that you felt like your job was threatened right now and you find that out just before coming on a pod. You've got a motivation to get yourself some nice, good tape coming out after it, but it doesn't mean you're going to put your best shift in. That's kind of where... Is it Reese?
I'll fight him. I'll fight him.
Reese
all right, let's
coming.
go. Come
Reese is coming. No, don't threaten to fight Reese. We like Reese. I got old start lacking.
He's all right.
But
no, he's pretty good.
but that's the point, right? Is that all of those things still play in. I think it's anything that contributes, I think, to just any kind of distraction right now is not good for this team.
You want to be rowing in the same direction.
Right. You all want to be able to be focused completely on the task at hand. And that's exactly what I'm sure it's what I'm going to be told tomorrow, that they're all focused on the task at hand.
Kick Derek out.
But we all know deep down that distraction still plays into things. You can't just assume that they're going to be okay putting this aside and thinking towards next season and all. I mean, even thinking towards next season, I mean, you don't really want that thought, and you want to live in the here and now.
You do.
And anything that introduces the need to think about next season is unhelpful at this point, really.
Oh, again, look, I will again, and I said this in the spiel. I'll make it very clear. This is very unfortunate timing. This is not a net positive. There is no additional motivation that can be gained from this happening. But I think that, and I'm not saying you were implying this. I'm not saying anyone's implying this. But I think the notion of saying, oh well, this completely skews, what's going on, or there's now a different focus at hand. I don't know if it necessarily is that way. I think it's definitely news. I think it's definitely something that it is it can, and there's a very good chance it is a distraction. But I don't think that it necessarily should get in the way of things going on, right? Even if this new manager is coming in, is solidified, that does not change what is going down, on Sunday. So again, it's easier said than done. I am curious, right? It will be interesting for, right? If you do, and I'm not, again, this is pure speculation. We'll see what happens, but right? What is going to be the directive, right? Are we going to see any additional lineup changes? Is there anything influenced by this decision coming early? I would think not, but you never know. It's with this now out there, it just makes you speculate. And given that you're on a playoff week, given everything that's happening, given that again, till you're not, you are the reigning, defending USL champions. It's just a really weird vibe heading into the playoffs, which you think about this time last year when we were heading into that away match to San Diego. I mean, goodness, we were talking about put a club in a box. I mean, this is a little bit of a different vibe to that.
Yeah, but it's another Sunday night game. It's another game against a rival team. It is a different vibe to that.
Yeah.
What I'll say, again, just a little bit more on the timing, because there's so much more I could talk about on this.
Oh, you?
It is that, to me, this is where the real risk of leaving things until the end of the season comes in terms of just you're in a playoff-based league. You've kind of got to make your mind up. Are you either aiming to actually win something later on in the playoffs, or are you trying to, just write the season off at the point you say you leave it until the very end? Because I understand the fact that you don't want to rush these decisions. I understand the fact, again, that some coaches aren't available. But either these playoffs don't really matter and you can make that decision regardless of what happens in these playoffs and regardless of the final outcome, which isn't what we've heard from people in the club higher up when they want to defend other things the club has or hasn't done and the people have or haven't done over the course of their time at this club. Or they do matter and yet decisions are still being made. It's just all such a mess. And this is kind of the risk of leaving everything until the end in a playoff-based league, because your important games are now. Everything's still caught up in distraction. But also, if you didn't make a decision until after this was done, we heard last year, I was hearing about transfers during the playoffs last year.
Yep. Of
guys who were free agents who'd agreed with new teams. Ronaldo Damas was one of them. We were hearing about that before the final was even played. Okay, you are at a disadvantage if you don't have things in place ready to deal with that come this kind of time of year. But at the same time, then you've just left the guy as a lame duck during the most important stretch of your season, supposedly. Undermined him to your players. And look, I've got to be honest. I'll say this now. If you put yourself in Diego Gómez's shoes right now, man.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay? Imagine there are no other kind of considerations in terms of financial or anything like that. Imagine that your idea at the end of this is you don't really want to stay on as an assistant coach. At the point where you feel undermined like this, do you actually stay? Or would you just walk now? Because they're obviously not going to keep him and there's nothing we have to say that these reporting isn't true. What would be the point of staying at this point?
Yeah, no, it's...
you've been completely undermined by the people above you.
I mean... I'll put it this way, man. Regardless of whether you feel slighted or not, regardless of how this news dropped, if you stay on as an assistant head coach, listen, life is not linear. It's okay. Everyone thinks you always have to be taking a step forward. That's not how it works. But we will call it in the sense of if you stay on as assistant head coach, you're exactly where you were when the season started.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is
it's the way in which
you often hear about interim coaches and caretakers who come in, do the job maybe for a few weeks, and then go back into the assistant role. But Diego's had it for half a season.
Oh, yeah.
Was apparently a genuine candidate for this role, per what we have been told by Bobby Dooley publicly.
There is a difference between caretaker and an interim. An interim, I believe it gives the impression.
I think that's more UK versus US.
I guess, but I don't know, man. I think the way that you phrase it up, that you drum it up, I think that you're always in consideration until it's stated that you're not, regardless of the title. Regardless of the title, I mean, for all we know, and for all the speculation, this entire time was very much a legit can. And here's the other part: is not only is this timing not ideal given everything, given the match week, given the uncertainty, but the other kind of end of this is it's also not confirmed or solidified, like as in contract is not pen to paper. And that's
it may well be,
at least. But what I mean is it's not public. And like, as in, it's not out there. It's not announced by the club.
A lot of things happen in these leagues that aren't public. I again will say this. Broadly speaking, the idea that this is being reported by Tom Bogert and is completely off.
And what I'm saying is, like, right, we've followed his work. We're not doubting Tom's work. What I'm saying is, these things, you never know. It can all, right? Things can come apart last minute. You have seen crazier things.
Is that why it's come out?
I'm not even trying to play.
I'll add this. This club has no motivation to put this news out right now. This does nothing positive.
No, and what I'm getting at is, I'm not trying to play speculation theory or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, this could be a legit thing where the club is like, there is legit interest. This is legit trying to happen. But until this is announced by the club, I do not care whether it is already signed to paper or not. Until this is announced and solidified and verified from the club's perspective that this is a confirmed hiring of a new manager, then you have the other end of speculation. Is not only do you have this out there, which is already weird, given that you have an interim head coach who has been vying for this club, given that you have a playoff match this week, but then on the other end, okay, at least you can say your future is 100% confirmed, new direction. It might be weird, and the playoffs right now are a bit murky, but at least you have the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't even have that right now. It's a very weird situation overall. Again, I do not care whether it's pen to paper or not. Until it's announced, either way, you are in a weird limbo where the rumor is out there by a notable source. It has not been denied by the club, but it has also not been confirmed or announced by the club. So it is, again, we have said this on multiple occasions, even as early as mid-season when Diego Gómez was announced, even before the season when we were waiting for Danny Stone to be appointed, in theory, right before, when we had the hunch that he could very much be the guy, when he was the guy, when the club was taking weeks to appoint a new head coach after Juan Guerra left. If you do not control the narrative yourself, it will control you. And it seems like we are right back into that scenario. Good, bad, or indifferent, whether the club wanted this news to break or not, it is not good optics being, again, in a similar vibe and situation from before the season even started.
Again, no, I'll go back to this. Phoenix Rising, in my mind, they're not winning the title this year. They're not going to win the playoffs.
Oh, boy.
But what if they do? What if they do? To Devin's comment earlier on about, will Kah be here for the next round? I highly doubt it. You don't bring a guy in mid-playoffs. All it'll do is throw everything off. That would be the worst possible move you could actually make, would be bringing a guy in mid-playoffs. He might be around the club.
There's no way.
But you're not going to bring him in and actually ask him to lead in the middle of a playoff run with players that he doesn't know, that he hasn't worked with before. You're not going to do it. If you do, you are insane. The question is, what happens if Diego was to win the league this year? I don't see it happening.
Dear gosh.
I think it would make last year look predictable if they did it this year. Because this year is just on another scale entirely. But what happens if he does? Because how do you at this point put everything back in the box at this point when it's come out like this?
What's in the box? I don't know.
How do you? I don't know. And at that point, has Diego earned the job? Because again, I personally see why there's a big distinction in terms of...
Oh, Kevin.
He's not making a tattoo bet again. I personally see where there's a bigger distinction in terms of the league and your year-long performance versus the playoffs, okay? I'm not someone who is hugely swayed by the 4 games as a real barometer of how good your team has been in a year. But there are people in the club who have hung their hat on that. And there are. We've seen it. We've heard it. It's happened publicly. There are people who will defend the records of other people in this club based on the fact that this team has made finals. Well, what would happen if Diego took them to a final? And I'll actually add that in the sense that I don't think there's anyone in this Western Conference that's not beatable. I don't think Rising will do it 3 times on the road, but I also don't think there's any individual team I look at in this league that is completely unbeatable, because I think that this Western Conference right now is a mess of teams on dubious form. And it is. When your top seed hasn't won in 5... when the teams below them seem to be battling out over who's going to come in with more than 1 win in their last 5. None of these teams are hugely formidable. They're not the kind of teams you expect, I think, to lose again 3 times on the bounce when they're at home against Phoenix Rising. But it's not, there's no Louisville, there's no Charleston that you look at and go, I don't even know how you get past these guys. Who's that team in the West? I don't think there is.
I mean, if even if there are, it doesn't match the seeding. It's strange. Curtin doesn't match the drapes. It's a weird one. I don't know. I mean,
so I don't know. What happens if he makes the final? Again,
I don't know. People are also throwing. Side note, people are throwing out tattoo ideas for me. Siley with the Circle K logo, James with a branded Bills tat. You guys are creative. I'll give you that. I do. The Tottenham Spurs bird on top of a ball and the middle. Okay. Why did I read that out? Kyle, get out of here! You're behind the Mac. Why did I read that out loud? That was fortunate. You know,
what is that, Max? About the bit where the Spurs?
Anyway, moving on. Also,
you don't win very much.
You know, I do want to make sure, ignoring you, that I'm not ignoring our diehards. Make sure to become a diehard today, right? If you not have already done so, there's multiple diehards in the chat. Devinall, Siley amongst them. You guys are great. Owen prepping a little fantasy challenge or some sort of prediction game.
We should launch that, not today because it's not ready yet.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, this is now a pressure.
I wasn't expecting all this news to break this week.
There's not pressure for Owen. Yeah, you got it. But our diehards are going to keep him accountable. Go to gophnx.com, become a diehard today, and boy, do I have a little introductory offer for you. Hit that graphic, Kyle. Yes. Limited time intro offer. $48 for an annual pass. For those of you doing math at home, there's 12 months of the year. $48. Owen, what's that math? How much per month? Darn it. $4 per month.
Did you do that, Max, or did you need the notes?
Sir, I'll have you know, I have an Arizona State University business education. I am darn qualified to answer 48 divided by 12. It's $4 per month. Approximately. Let's go. Pat on the back for me. Yes, that's what you get. Our diehard membership. Nice introductory offer. Yes. Actually, one thing we haven't heard from yet. It's from producer Kyle. Producer Kyle, gotta ask your opinion, right? I mean, listen, you're a player, right? You're hearing this news on the week of playoffs.
To be clear, Kyle is obviously not a player.
I'm saying, I'm saying you're a player. Envision you're a player.
I was a player. There we go. Envision. There he was.
Hey, Kyle's a player in his own right. No, no Golden Boot winner. But Kyle, you're a player in your own right. You're hearing this news on the week of the playoffs. I mean, does this give you positive, negative, or like indifferent motivation, or is this a distraction? Like, how are you interpreting this?
I think at first I would hear it and then just, be like, why should we even try for this game in Albuquerque? But then you kind of separate yourself from all the drama and you can rally the team together and see how well you can do at the end of the year despite all the off the pitch drama. That's how I would handle it. Because you can only control so much as a player.
Mm-hmm.
You can. I mean,
true.
You can only control the controllables. Like it's.
I'll also add
weird.
though, in terms of the rallying around, I don't believe what we'll see will definitively tell us yes or no on this one in terms of how the boys feel. So if they go there and lose, it doesn't mean they feel a certain way. If they go there and win, it doesn't mean they feel a certain way. But a part of rallying around in those cases can also come down on how popular the coach is among the locker room or not. Again, we will not get a definitive answer on that, I don't feel, given the entire totality of circumstances here, based on the result that they get when they go over to New Mexico. But I do think that part of that rallying around effect will be impacted by quite how that locker room feels, which way or the other they tend to lean towards. Look, obviously we hear bits and pieces that are normally from various individuals around the club that are more vocal on certain things. I can't tell you what the full backing of the locker room is for or against Diego. I don't know on that one. I'm not going to pretend I do know the answer specifically on that one. But that will play a role, I think, into what kind of a reaction we see from these boys. At least a part of a role in that.
Yeah, I mean it's just weird time. I mean, listen, I don't know. You know, even the most ardent of Rising supporters, it's just such a weird timing and a weird season overall. Again, going, third manager of the calendar year, lowest seed that you've qualified with for the playoff picture, and then to just drop this on you. And again, like I'm also not trying to paint things as hopeless or bleak. I'm like, listen, man, we're keeping it real. Like from, trying to take a part where you separate yourself from the club and trying to put your fan hat off. But like come Sunday, right? There's going to be people who they're rallying around the team. They want them to win. They want them to beat New Mexico, move on and capture a second consecutive championship. And like, as you should, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's important to realize these types of situations don't always devolve in the way that they do. And it's just, I keep going back to, man, it's unfortunate. It's weird timing. And I just hope when the optics are all said and done, whenever the playoffs end, whether it's after Sunday, whether it's 2 weeks from now, dare I even say a month from now, after Phoenix Rising wins it all for the second consecutive year in a row, and which draws a laugh from Owain. Whenever the playoffs end, I just hope that it feels a bit more like a refresh and that we're kind of past this weird in limbo of news to come. I get things need to break in the fashion that they do. They need to be announced and confirmed when they need to do. But this is just the vibes are off, man. It's easy as that.
The club's never controlled its own narrative at any stage, I don't think, to be perfectly frank, be it 2020, be it everything that's happened since, and a positive on a negative on a whatever. They've never controlled their own narrative, and I don't expect them to ever start doing so. That's a really negative thing to say. Right.
I mean,
do you want a bit of lighter news? I don't stumbled upon the. No, are we moving off of this topic and just moving on to a little bit?
I mean, I think so. I don't know where you're pivoting to go lighter news.
For whatever reason, this tweet from New Mexico just popped up. For some reason, they felt the need to caveat it. Listen now, the opening line to this tweet: "We are not blowing up this car with fireworks." So I don't know why New Mexico. They put a video out, and the video literally starts with one of their players saying they're about to blow up a car with fireworks.
What?
I don't know, Max. I don't know. Okay. I'm lost. I'm lost. I'm lost.
Blow up a car with.
They're doing fireworks after the game, which actually, you know what? Can I just say it right now? Yeah. I love when teams do post-match fireworks, especially in the playoffs. Because can you imagine a funnier outcome right now than New Mexico being dumped out at home in the year they're a number 1 seed by a rival and then go, hope you all stay around afterwards. We're going to set some fireworks off.
Why does that have the same vibe as ooh, friend?
It's not just funny. I find that really funny. I understand the whole fireworks thing. They like them in the season often, right? But in a playoffs? In the playoffs? Would you do that? Imagine they lose this one. Those fireworks going to hit
Guess they're going out with a bang either way.
Going out with a bang either way. That's one.
Oh, no, is there such thing as sad fireworks? Oh, boy. Listen,
we'll find out soon, eh?
We got a couple other housekeeping things. I mean, right, we talked about it after the match on Saturday during postgame. I mean, right, just any further thoughts, any new realizations from Louisville City beating Phoenix Rising 4-1 on this past Saturday. By the way, as we know, the expected goals were updated 2.78 for Louisville City and 1.59 for Phoenix Rising. I mean, again, one where Rising dominated possession. That's about it.
Yeah, nothing to really know, I don't think. It's one of those games, especially as the game goes on. You knew if you were Phoenix Rising, you had to win the game to come away with anything of note. You came up against a very class team in Louisville who are just very, very good. Again, when I was saying this about it earlier in terms of you compared the West and the East, Louisville are a juggernaut of a number 1 seed that you don't want any part of in the playoffs. And that's kind of the distinction between the East and the West, I think, this season, is the very top teams in the East, I genuinely think, are just a step above. And in particular, I'd say that Louisville are that team, let's be real.
They're them.
So I only
they
read
say
so
they're
much
him, but
into
they're
it.
them.
Not very much that you need to read into it because, again, it is what it is. You knew the only thing you were coming out of there with actually getting anything of note was with a win. Otherwise, you were the number 8 seed. And they lost. So there's no shame inherently in losing to Louisville. Obviously, you wouldn't want the scoreline to be quite as it was, although one of those goals coming right at the very death as it did is a little bit more context into that one.
You love context. This actually also very much side note. I think this, I'm going to put a positive spin zone on this. I think for Rising's perspective, you might be happy that you lost, because if you
because New Mexico haven't won in 5 and because Vegas have lost their last 2.
Yeah, well, so no, they would have currently their switchbacks are 2.
No, I'm saying, but Vegas though in 4th have lost their last 2, so they're who you
Right.
presumably play the following.
Right.
Or Sacramento, who are also struggling.
I mean, it's I mean, I think you're happy given the opponent, the fact that they want revenge, but yeah, I think you're happy with who you're playing, and watch that completely come back to bite. Or I guess I wouldn't even say come back to bite. I mean, as play out as many people.
They
I
don't
think
blow teams away. Should we look at the bracket? Should we have a quick look at the playoff bracket?
Let's look at the bracket.
So the context here again, you look at this out on the West. New Mexico up in the 1 seed playing Rising. It's Colorado Springs. Oh, that's slightly off, I think.
Way to go, Owen.
Oh gosh, have we got it wrong?
Yeah, that's
we have got it wrong. Okay, that might be a pride draft.
No, there's no we.
Fine, I got it wrong. That was a pride draft.
That's what I was saying. They're clearly too.
There we go. That's what happens when you get the pride draft in there. But too many.
Everyone boo Owen.
Pulling one from the night off. Definitely got the wrong one there. Pull it down, Carl. Pull it down. Pull it off. Pull it off. Pull it off.
Keep it up there a little longer, Cal.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure. Where's the actual one gone? Where's the actual one gone? I don't know.
This is really great content.
This is great content.
This is fantastic content. All right, let's
talk me through it, Max.
Oh boy, we'll talk you through it. Okay. New Mexico 1 seed playing Phoenix Rising, the 8th seed. Vegas playing Sac. Memphis playing Orange County. Colorado Springs Switchbacks playing Oakland. And that's what I was getting at is if Phoenix Rising would have won, they would have overtaken Oakland. They would have been the 7th seed. You would have gone away to Springs. Going away to Springs, where you have really had like 0 success versus going away to New Mexico, where it's been, recently. I'll take that. So I actually think this, in a way, this helped Phoenix Rising. Over on the east side, Louisville City playing North Carolina FC. Indy 11 playing Rhode Island at home. Indy at home. Detroit hosting Tampa Bay Rowdies. That actually, honestly, to me, from a neutral's perspective, very fascinated by that one. And Charleston Battery playing Pittsburgh River Hounds. A lot of enticing matchups. We shall see. I mean, again, on Thursday, I'm going to talk a little bit further about Rising's matchup against New Mexico, but I'll just say this from a overall perspective. If you just want to know how these teams are weighted, right? These conferences are weighted. From a points perspective, again, New Mexico, 59 points. Phoenix Rising, 42 points. Again, Phoenix Rising, the lowest points total to qualify for the playoffs in either conference this year. New Mexico on 59 points would be finishing 3rd in the East. So, right? You kind of think, oh, that's not bad. That's pretty good. And to their credit, they would. If you're going off goal differential, which, listen, that's not everything. It's good to know that you can win close games, especially as playoffs goes around. But it does kind of give an indicator of how dominant you've been in the regular season. New New Mexico's goal differential of +2 would have them slotted in it. I mean, shoot, if you're in a playoff format, you'd be 7th. But if you're going overall in the East, you would be 8th. So definitely down there a bit. Again, New Mexico not on good form, right? They have not won any in their last 5. They have not won since September 22nd, over a month ago, where they hosted Loudoun United. Again, Loudoun United, the mighty...
Even Rising beat them.
Mighty Loudoun United.
Away.
Yeah, so they are not on good form. Blowout loss away to Sacramento,
Correct.
lost to Rising,
Correct.
drew against Tulsa and Orange
Correct.
County on the road, and then lost their last one against a Memphis team that was also fighting for seeding, and that actually went in their favor as they jumped a couple spots. So, listen, it's going to be wild. It's going to be interesting. More on Thursday for kind of the more specific matchup. But Owen, when you kind of hear the playoff bracket and all the different matchups, is there any in particular that stand out from you, really on either side?
Ooh.
Again, I kind of noted
Good
Detroit
question.
hosting Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting one, mostly because, well, partly because the league really wants to get a game in Detroit in the playoffs.
Yes.
And they're playing Tampa Bay, who obviously typically one of the better teams in this league. I'm intrigued by Charleston-Pittsburgh.
Sure.
If you wanted a true upset one, I think, yes, Charleston are very, very good. But you always just wonder if Bob Lilly's got that little trick up his sleeve.
They were first last
And
year.
don't get
in
me
the
wrong,
East.
they tend to crash out in the playoffs.
Well, they were first last year and then they got upset.
Yeah, it is what it is. His teams don't tend to do well in the playoffs, but you never know. Maybe he's got a little trick up the sleeve. Indy, Rhode Island, also interesting there. Rhode Island, can they ride their momentum going a little bit here? So there's some interesting games out east. Vegas' first ever home playoff game.
Chat, let us know, by the way, as well, any playoff matchups, of course, outside of Rising New Mexico that you are interested in partaking in.
Interesting. A
lot of juice in. What's the first one is on they're kicking off with Lights and Sac Republic on Friday.
Yeah, they are.
Cashman Field hosting the first playoff match.
I know.
Where have we fallen?
If anyone's interested as well, just the other bit here on New Mexico games Rising. I'll give you a little bit. Obviously, we'll be previewing the footballing more on Thursday, but the interesting one here, we got a. We're talking about the referees. For this one.
Yeah.
We got a double scab refereeing crew. In terms of the referee and fourth official both scabbed in the MLS lockout at the start of the season. And Lorenzo Hernandez, the referee, it's his first ever USL Championship playoffs, and he's never refereed either of these two teams. So,
well,
there we go.
Buckle up, Buckaroo. Yeah, we're talking about the drive to New Mexico. It's
not too bad. It's not too bad.
Are you excited to go out there?
It is what it is.
The sigh.
I still need to speak to Gerald like I said I was going to. I will do so on Thursday.
Don't forget. Also, don't tank my Visit Albuquerque campaign that I'm working on.
Max, that's a free ad. What are you on about?
No, I said visit and
Max.
when
Simpson,
I do it, it's prospecting. I can do it.
Ads.
I
Max
can do it.
Simpson,
I can do it. I can do it. You cannot. You cannot. You cannot. But I can. That's how it works around here. I'm the ad man.
Again, since I can't say it publicly because he'll come after me. If you need help on the hotel front, just DM me please on Twitter. OGM18.
You said Twitter, no free ads. Excuse me.
It's not even called that anymore technically because the guy's renamed it.
Oh gosh,
we're not getting into
you
that.
Really have to scroll up just to put that on screen, Kyle. Get out of here. We don't.
I agree. Thank you, Derek.
We don't trust Derek Monte. Actually, everyone at cap_caveman with a K and say some choice things to him. We'd appreciate that. I'd appreciate that. But I think that'll do it here. I think that'll do it.
Cyberbullying's wrong, man.
It's not cyberbullying. Bully him in person for all I care. No, but I'm just kidding. No, we love Derek. Don't do it. Don't clip that and take that out of context. Appreciate everyone joining us here on the PHNX Rising podcast. Of course, make sure to hit the like button on your way out. Otherwise, Kyle will not let me leave the studio. Please, I want to go home to my fiance. Please, just go leave a like button on your way out.
Sam's probably enjoying a vacation.
Yeah, I'm surprised she doesn't join. That's probably good. You can follow PHNX__rising is W_.
Double the drama.
Double the drama.
Please, do we have to have the drama? Yes, apparently.
I mean, it's content. It's good content. You can follow me on Twitter at Max David Simpson. You can follow Owen on Twitter at OJ Evans 18. You can even follow Style Like Your Reese, the hot dog helper, the admin in training. We're gonna train him up well. You know what? My apprentice, my protege.
Your apprentice.
My protege.
Apprentice admin.
He's gonna hate that. Reese11 _. You can follow Mr. Kyle Cooper behind the Mac at K Coop Sports. Again, we'll be back Thursday. Actually, announcement Thursday at 5:30. 5:30. Thursday at 5:30. We are starting a little bit early, so make sure to join us then. Thursday at 5:30. You join us 6. We're still going to be going. We're just going to be halfway through this darn thing. So if you want to catch us, do it at 5:30. And it is a beautiful game, but it's so much more beautiful when Phoenix Rising can just have a normal week. Good night.
We all silly like the mayor.